Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Christanbulian Let's Build a Fantasy Village. In the last episode, we built a housing block for the residents of the village, so now they have somewhere to sleep and stay, and I'm inside one of those houses right now, keeping warm by the fire. But in today's build, we're going to move back towards a fantasy-style theme. We're going to be making an Alchemist's Laboratory. Now, I do apologize in advance. My voice may be a little bit rough this week because I'm recovering from a cold. But if you want to follow me outside, I'll show you where we're setting up the Alchemist's Laboratory. So I've already placed the foundations, and around the perimeter I've used some chiseled stone brick to make those cool sort of Roman pillars around the perimeter. And I've also used lapis lazuli blocks, which give a cool blue cobblestone flooring effect in this texture pack. Now, these yellow wool blocks are not permanent. They're just here to show you the pattern. I've used a Minecraft circle pattern to make the circular portion of the Alchemist Laboratory. And if you'd like to find out how to make a Minecraft circle, or you need to find a pattern for different sizes of circles, you can just Google image search Minecraft circles, and there is a bunch of reference images for you to use. I'm going ahead here and starting to fill in the walls with white clay, which in this texture pack is just the regular clay. And you may notice that I'm filling in the walls quite a lot faster than usual. That's because I've installed Voxel Sniper onto my server. So Voxel Sniper is a Minecraft world editing program. And what that means, for those of you not in the know, is I basically have Photoshop in Minecraft now. So the function that I was using was the copy-paste function, which allows me to literally copy a selection of blocks and paste them. And I'm doing the same thing on the floor here. But Voxel Sniper also has a lot of different brushes, as they're called, like in Photoshop, that allow you to edit the terrain of your world, which I may use later down the road in the build, but for now I'm going to stick with the copy-paste function, and that alone gives me a lot of new versatility in my builds, because I can quickly fill in large portions of a build that use the same repetitive design. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm copy and pasting those columns around the perimeter of the second floor. And we'll do the same thing with the clay wall. And really quickly, we're going to flesh out the Alchemist Laboratory. You see in the background there's a watchtower. I have done some building on the server. Actually, at this point, I've done a lot of building on the server outside of recording. Eventually, I will do a tour and give you guys the show of the entire village, but for now, I'm just recording the things that are unique or cool. And the Alchemist Laboratory, I definitely think is cool. It's a unique building in the village so far. It's definitely using different design themes. It's got the white clay to give sort of a sterile science feel, and those chiseled stone columns that we haven't used anywhere in the build. And I've also separated the different stories of the building with the black wool, again, a feature that we haven't used in the build yet. A lot of different colors and textures that we haven't used yet in the village. But that's because the Alchemist Tower really needs to stand out. It's a really unique building. The Alchemists are really unique people. The circular portion of the Alchemist Laboratory is going to be an observatory. And that's because the alchemists maybe need somewhere where they can observe the stars, because, I don't know, I'm not an alchemist, but maybe some of their experiments are based around the alignment of the stars and the planets. And that's really why the Alchemist Tower is so unique. Alchemists are crazy men of science and magic. They blend science and magic to make crazy experiments and discoveries. And because of that, we want to make sure that their laboratory is very unique, very science fiction-y and interesting looking. It's got to stand out from the rest of the architecture of the village. So now we're making the observatory at the top of the circular portion of the Alchemist Laboratory. we're using the same chiseled stone bricks to make those columns, but we aren't filling them in because this is an observatory. They need to be able to look out and see the night sky. We are putting a roof on this portion, however, and because we've used a circular base, we can't use the same kind of roof that we've used in the rest of the build. We're going to make a dome. So because of that, we won't be using the same stairs that we've been using to make roofs in the rest of the town. Instead, we're just going to use regular full bricks. I'm using some red nether brick just to add a bit of different color to the build, making sure that it's not too monotonous. And what I've done for the taper of this dome is I've just followed the same pattern of the circle, but I've made the base of that dome 2 blocks high, and every sequential piece that I taper inwards, I'm going to make only 1 piece high now. The reason for that is I didn't want the dome to feel too shallow, so I just wanted to start it off with 1 block of extra height. And I'm not doing anything special or unique. All I'm doing is moving inward incrementally by 1 block to make the dome taper inwards. It's right about here that I completely forgot what I was doing, and I just kept going upwards, which is not what we wanted to do because it made a pointed roof. So I remove that, chisel away at those blocks to make sure that the dome stays domed and not pointed. And there you go, that's our domed roof. And as we have it, that is the main shape of the Alchemist Laboratory. Now I'm adding to the perimeter of the open balcony for the square portion of the Alchemist Laboratory, using the chiseled stone bricks to make some shorter columns on the corners of the balcony. And this is an open balcony because the alchemists, maybe they just need somewhere to go out and have their lunch, but it's also probably important that they have somewhere accessible to fresh air when they're doing a lot of experimenting with who knows what, poisonous gases. It's probably a good idea that they have some open air access. Now, because the alchemists are men of science, I'm putting in some different lighting than we've used in the town so far. Those are redstone lamps. I have them powered on top by a redstone block, and then I've surrounded them with trap doors closed to surround in the redstone block so you don't see it. And then I've just put some more of those daylight sensors that we used over in the blacksmith's market stall, just to make it look sciencey. Now for the windows, I'm using blue stained panels because I wanted, once again, to keep sort of a science fiction-y feel to the Alchemist Laboratory, so I wanted some colored glass, thinking it would look interesting and unique. And it does, but I do eventually remove that later in the build because the blue color wasn't working. I'm making some window treatments here now because we have the main shape of the building completed. So as always, I'm just going around to the outside to make sure that the walls are not flat and to make sure that they have dimension. So I've used trap doors there, upside down red nether brick stairs, and some nether brick posts. I'm mimicking the same design theme from the top windows down to the bottom. And now I moved back to the balcony here because I did not like the way that that white clay looked as a barrier wall on the balcony. It was too flat. I tested out with some cobble walls. I didn't like those either. And what I eventually do is I lay down the perimeter of the floor with clay blocks. You see me doing that right here. And as for the barrier for the balcony, I actually end up using iron fences. And that's something that we haven't used in the village so far. And make sure to make it 2 blocks high, just in case any of those alchemists have inhaled any noxious gases, and we don't want them loopy up on this balcony. They might stumble over and fall, so let's just make sure they're protected. And now moving over to the circular portion of the observatory, just to make sure that we add dimension to all sides of the build. Once again, I end up using the blue stained glass for the windows on the observatory, but I do go back and change those. I mimic it to all sides. And then what I'm doing here is just looking for somewhere that I can add a bit of trim to the observatory to make sure that it's not too flat and monotonous. We've got a lot of dimension right now going on in the square portion of the Alchemist Laboratory, but not so much on the tower portion. So I'm running around with red nether brick half slabs and adding a trim right at the bottom of the black separations of each floor. I'm just mimicking that around the entire perimeter of the building. Right here I'm coming around and just mimicking it around the square portion of the Alchemist Laboratory too, and I ran into a problem. I couldn't put those half slabs on the same elevation that I had those trap doors of the window treatments. So momentarily I removed it and just brought it back around the circular tower portion, but I didn't like that. I really wanted the trim to continue around the entire building so that you got a sense that this was one connected building. So I just removed those trap doors and I continued with the red nether brick half slabs around the perimeter of both parts of the building. And I do like the way it turned out. Remembering to add it to the dome as well to make sure that we carry the same design themes throughout every aspect of the build. Sometimes it's easy to overlook portions like that where the dome you kind of classify to yourself as a separate portion of the building, but in reality, when you look at the stories of the building, the dome is sort of like another story. The flow is the same, so we should add the trim to the dome as well as each story of the building. And now here I've copied, using the copy and paste brush of Voxel Sniper, those redstone lamps, and I'm just toying around with some different configurations to see where to put them around the Alchemist Laboratory. Because the alchemists would probably light up the perimeter of their building with the same kind of technology that they've used inside. And now we move around just to make sure that we have the same themes on all sides of our building, because again, it's important to remember that builds are not just seen from one direction. These are three-dimensional objects, and we need to pay attention to every side of the build. So all we're doing is copying the window trim. I decided I didn't like the redstone torches there just wasn't enough room. And interesting, I decided to take out the window trims. We've used that in a lot of the builds so far in the village, and I realized I wanted that white clay wall to stand out. It makes the Alchemist Laboratory unique, and I didn't feel it needed all the dimension in the nether brick fence posts as a window trim. And there you go. That's the Alchemist Laboratory. So why don't we take a look at some shots of the Alchemist Laboratory? Oh, actually, sorry guys, Before we take a look at any more shots, I forgot to show you one of the best parts of this build. Now, we get a sneak peek at the inside of the Alchemist Laboratory with all their sciencey bits and bobs, but there's one piece de resistance of this build, something that the alchemists have up their sleeve. Let's take a minute to absorb in all the beauty of the interior, but here we go. The piece de resistance of the Alchemist Laboratory. Wow, and there you go guys. I hope you enjoyed that little special surprise that the Alchemist had in store for you. We've done a lot to make sure that the design features of the Alchemist Laboratory stayed science fiction-y and magical. But I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and until next time, bye!